Hey, you believers, non-believers, unaffiliated believers, sort of believers, and even you think I'm a believers, welcome. My non-university unstudents, welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor. This is a podcast that is 100% COVID-free. Yep, it's true. I wear 3 face masks, 2 pairs of earplugs, and a hat when I record, so you can't possibly catch Rona flu from the UU. I care about you. Hey, you new to the show? I do not offer sermons. I'm not at all against sermons, but we think together here rather than push for particular heart decisions. Me? Yeah, of course, there's a place for sermons. And then there's a place for unpacking the Christian worldview, the Christian way, for viewing reality through biblical commitments. The heart cannot go where the head is unwilling. Or, Peter Kreeft put it, we can't love what we believe to be unreal. No, we are whole selves. The thinking God gave us intellects to use, and He relishes when we use them. And so, I cast these pods for the sake of thinking. And for that reason, this show is a rare kind of animal. Because I like reason and logic more than emotional appeals, though, of course, we're all shaped by our emotions. Which reminds me, a mechanic was removing a cylinder head from the motor of a Harley motorcycle when he spotted a well-known surgeon in his shop. The surgeon was waiting for the service manager to come and take a look at his bike when the mechanic shouted across the garage, "Hey, Doc, can I ask you a question?" The surgeon, a bit surprised, walked over to where the mechanic was working on the motorcycle. The mechanic straightened up, wiped his hands on a rag, and asked, "So, Doc, look at this engine. I open its heart, take valves out, fix them, put them back in, and when I finish, it works just like new. So how come I get such a small salary and you get the really big bucks when you and I are doing basically the same work?" The surgeon paused, smiled, leaned over, and whispered to the mechanic, "Try doing it with the engine running." Yeah, there is a difference between heads and hearts, but God gave us both. Let's be wise with both. But I can't do straight non-emotional lecturing either. God bless Albert Mohler type shows. They're directly informational. I have no problems for those. That's fine. I benefit from them. But there's a couple things that feed into my own MO, my modus operandi. A, I like to laugh. Me whole life loved to laugh. Loved laughing with me brothers and sisters. Loved laughing with me cousins. Loved laughing with me high school sports teammates. And I cherished the laughter of the theology department that I taught in for years. Oh man, I miss laughing with my academic colleagues. Such wonderful and piercing senses of humor. And B, a second reason I don't do dry, straightforward, factual unpacking, I'm silly. That's just the truth. I just can't be serious for too long. So, my shows are, like my classrooms were, a strange mixture of reasoning, even complex theophilosophical reasoning, and stupid, silly, deadpan humor. So, if you like to think and you like to laugh, welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor, a show for believers who want to go deeper. Recent Facebook shares, Victor S., Cody A., Mom, hugs to you, Mom, and Colleen S. I'm so appreciative. Folks, I don't curse on this show, but today's analysis is very focused, specific even, so I'm warning you up front, I'm going to swear or use a swear word a few times. You might want to get your kids out of the room. The Bible repeatedly calls us to discernment and judgment, the former being constituent to the latter. Apostle Paul wrote, test, examine, dokimadzete. Everything, test everything, 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Working from the same Christ-centered worldview, John exhorted, do not believe every spirit, but test, examine, dokimadzete. Test the spirits to see if they're from God, 1 John 4:1. And thank you, Bobby JV, for those references. So discernment, informed judgment, that's part of being a disciple. Last week we examined what Jesus famously, if most misunderstoodiously, said about judgment and wood in your eye in Matthew 7, which was what? Don't project your struggle onto someone else and then roast them for being worse than you. Don't pretend you clearly see people's hearts on the basis of appearances. Well, today I want to think still further with you about this critical topic of judging. The world spirit will say darn near anything, doublespeak, to leverage the upper hand regarding cultural formation. Princeton information philosopher Harry Frankfurt put it like this, quote, it is impossible for someone to lie unless he thinks he knows the truth. Producing bullshit requires no such conviction. I'm going to say that again. It's impossible for someone to lie unless he thinks he knows the truth. Producing bullshit requires no such conviction. The world spirit today, bullshit central. Now, that's not because of nonsense, it's because of elusive power plays. Because it believes truth is a mere social construction, the world spirit believes it can say anything it wants as a means to power. And I'm sad to say this is, finally, for the world spirit, all about power. So, a well-formed conscience, that's for old fogies. Telling the truth? Oh, sheesh, the truth today? The sky is blue. But tomorrow, if pompously saying the sky is orange garners more allegiance and power, then bullshit, the sky is orange. And to our topic today, the world spirit will even pretend it gives a hogwashical care to quote Jesus, do not judge, and then deny every single other thing Jesus ever said. It's not just a little transparent, and it's always a power grab. Tomates sagrados. Jesus said, tell the truth. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, and anything more than that comes from the devil. You think Jesus was aware of BS? Guys, again, when you run into pompous doublespeak, always know, discern that a sneaky power grab is at hand. Always. It's trying to work you, bullshit you. So today, the show will be comprised of 3 levels. First, I want to unpack for you some other examples of where Jesus either openly taught on the need to judge or implied it by virtue of instructing people to make decisions. And then second level today, digging into discernment in a BS era, second today I will work through a picnic basket of examples where distinctions are necessary. And third, I want to dig into the qualities that make for healthy Christian discernment. First, let's dig Jesus, shan't we? As I noted last week, Jesus directly taught that we need to make righteous judgments. He did that in the middle of John 7. His opponents were upset with him for healing a paralytic on the Sabbath, and between them and Jesus an argument broke out about what was lawful. Without rehearsing the entire pericope, Jesus said to them, you guys are so irritated with me that you're using the law against lawfulness. Why are you unhappy that a man was made whole on the Sabbath? No, instead of judging by appearances, that I'm obviously not one of you, why not judge me by the good that I'm doing? And honestly, he had said to them elsewhere, for instance in John 14, he says, look, if you don't approve of me, at least approve of the restorative and healing signs that I work. To do that would be if you did it that way, you'd be judging with righteous discernment. But nope, they wouldn't even go there with him. They were too committed to appearances to cut Jesus a sliver of slack. The uptake for us here, Jesus taught that there is such a thing as appropriate judging, not by appearances, but by actions. Where else? In what other ways did Jesus positively commend judging to us? Well, how about Matthew 10:16, where Jesus said, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Look it. Jesus knew he was sending his disciples on a dangerous mission. There were wolves out there. Wolves seek to separate and devour. Wolves tear holy things to pieces. What was Jesus' advice for walking among wolves? Welcome them unconditionally? No. Scrutinize them. Beware of them. Learn, like cunning serpents, to discern them, to smell when they're pumping out BS, to recognize their deceptive speech. OMG. We need an entire lesson on this passage. This isn't even about the differences between moral good and evil, white and black. No, Jesus wanted his disciples, he wanted us to be able to differentiate between shades of gray. It's as plain as day. Jesus wanted them to be discerning, discriminating even, with regard to those who would trash holy things. Folks, I'm a committed Catholic and I want abortions happening through birth. BS. In fact, the etymology, word history for judgment in Koine Greek is krino, I judge, or krinane, to judge. What's it mean? Making decisions, discerning between alternatives? You guys, this is as basic as it gets. We simply have to make determinations, discriminations, distinctions between many factors, features, qualities, and possible outcomes across life. Jesus knew that. Later in Matthew 5, verses 27 through 29, Jesus teaches that it is evil to lust after a woman. To sow lust like that is to commit adultery in one's heart. Now seriously, do we think Jesus thought we could not, or God could not, tell the difference between lust and actual physical adultery? I mean, if he thought we were incapable of making that distinction, his entire dramatic point would have been rendered moot. No, he knew well there's a difference. There's a difference for society, a difference for a marriage, between lust in someone's heart, which renders one guilty before God, and adultery with someone who is not one's spouse, and that just brutalizes an actual marriage. There's a distinction there. Or again, Jesus taught about the difference between good and evil words. Matthew 12:36. Truly on judgment day you will have to give an account for every careless word, for by your words either you will be justified or condemned. Now did he utter such a warning all the while thinking we wouldn't know the difference between good and evil words? No, we can't be willfully ignorant. Too many Christians are. Or here's another example, oh my goodness, from Jesus. Discerning between adults and children. Jesus said, don't keep the little children from me. Matthew 19:14. Can we imagine today's woke subculture saying to Yeshua, but Jesus, we don't know the difference between who identifies as a child and who identifies as an adult, so we don't know who we are supposed to not keep from you. Gosh, Jesus would have said what surely must be said. Those who cause little ones to stumble will have a millstone tied around their neck and will be cast into the sea. Don't ruin your children like that. Geesh, again, making distinctions is part of life. It's part of mental health. It's part of being an adult, part of being a Christ follower. The Gospels are replete with Jesus teaching us to discern, perceive, recognize between the morality of actions and attitudes and possible outcomes. So, all of that to say there's level 1 of today's digging. There's some Jesus for you on discernment. My digging level 2, my picnic basket of examples where we simply must make distinctions today. Or where we simply need to be discriminating? I know, we've been taught that all discrimination is wrong. Actually, that's just not true. Some discrimination is wrong, the kind Jesus forbade in Matthew 7 of judging people's hearts on the basis of their appearances, like judging people on the basis of their skin color. Queso bizcochos. The state of Oregon's Department of Education is promoting, now hear me, the state of Oregon's Department of Education is promoting in their math curriculum steps to rid students of toxic characteristics. What, you're wondering, are such toxic characteristics? Oh, things like A, the focus on getting the right answer. There are singularly right answers in math? That's so obviously racist. Wait, you're saying when it comes to math, right answers are overburdensome? My bullshitometer is screaming at me. What else does Oregon want to call toxic? B, emphasizing individual practice over teamwork. Yeah, really. Stop telling individual persons that they can solve problems cause we need more people codependent on others. And then what else? C, air quotes, helping. Helping students realize that a focus on objective answers in math is a false construction. Math is objective? Yeah, how can anyone not see that objectivity is truly racist? Now me, I didn't shine at math. But I don't think any of those 3 steps would help me to be more proficient with algebra. I mean, seriously, looking back over that trio, it's almost like they want their students to be dumb and fail at math. Now why? Why on earth would they want a stupid populace? Geez, again, it's so transparent. Queso bizcochos, holy biscuits. I read through stuff like that and my own BSometer is flashing neon red. Oh, critical race theory could not be more racist. Could not be more unchristian. It utterly defies Jesus' command to not judge a book by its cover. And that supposed Christians are embracing that lying narrative is both mystifying and heartbreaking to me. Parents, I'm still thinking about Oregon's broken educational system. Parents, sorry, but it looks like the time has come to consider all options that exclude public education for your Christian children, because the indoctrination there is so loud. One day, because of the perverse shaping effects of public education, because of the curricular doublespeak like we just talked about in Oregon's math system, one day you may have your kids walk through your door and you'll no longer even know them. But I want to give you more examples where we simply must make distinctions, judgments. Should you buy hundreds of lottery tickets each month or invest in a 401k program? That's a significant, if obvious, distinction. Or would you pay top dollar for a used car with squeal-grinding brakes? Wouldn't it be wise to say no to inheriting a mess like that? But isn't making that judgment a wise recognition? Or if your rig was in the shop, so you needed a ride home from a work party, and a clearly drunk co-worker offered you a lift, would it be a foolish judgment to accept that offer? Would it be not nice to say no? Look it, we all know that would be a wise discrimination to reject that. Or here's a naughty one. Your boss asks you to lie for her. What would you do? Should you, to keep your job, should you go ahead and lie? Whether you say yes or no, you're making a judgment. By the way, try what my father-in-law Dennis did. Tell her, look, if you want me to lie for you, please know that I will also likely lie to you. How about a common one? You get a Facebook friend request from your old buddy Rick, but you know you're already friends. Should you accept that request or deny it because you know it's some fish? Aren't you being judgmental for denying the fish? Of course not. That's just a good discrimination to reject the request. So you're wondering, Ed, why? Why are you working through such simple illustrations? Because life is full of making necessary distinctions, obvious recognitions that conclude in some judgment. The prevalent notion that Jesus forbade such judgments is utter silliness. No, it is bullshit wrought for the sake of an agenda. What agenda, you're thinking? To wipe out Christian morality, to take power, and it's done over and over and over and over. Believers, stop falling for it. You're peeing on your saltiness. Thinking about Christians, I overheard this at a local church. A lady named Joan says to her husband, Herb, if you don't stop snoring, I'm going to toss you out on your ear. Herb says, does it upset you that much? And Joan said, well, not just me, but the entire congregation. Hey, do me a solid. Go leave a review of the podcast at YouTube or iTunes or Facebook. Thank you very much. We have to make obvious distinctions, you guys. Making judgments like that is a normal part of life. Here's level 3. Let's dig into our third level. What about the qualities that make for healthy Christian discernment? And man, I gotta confess up front, this is a toughie. It's sort of like asking someone to define beauty. But given as an assumed baseline that I universally presume a committed Christian worldview and committed Christian character, if we take that as a given, I want to offer some qualities that I think are critical for me if I were asking for someone's input or advice on an important decision. Or, put differently, how does one set one's BSometer system? How do you set your alarm system, right? Here's some qualities. A willingness to think through complex issues. If you, well, not you, my listener, but I don't want to use the formal one, if you are not even interested in exploring and untangling a complex problem, I couldn't trust your judgment. Willingness, or as listener Micah P. noted, curiosity. Curiosity to ponder itself expresses a certain wisdom quotient toward decision making. A willingness to think through complex issues. Now, this next one will sound very you, but it is seminal to me. Someone who's willing to consider history. History of what? Oh, the history of human nature, or the patterns whereby ideologies constantly work themselves out. The patterns whereby certain personality profiles play out. Let me say more on that last point. While I was a theology professor, I had to deal with all kinds of personalities, students and administrators. And especially regarding administrators, I would, with the help of family and Christian friends, ascertain someone's personality profile to then anticipate how likely they were to use their position or power to a specified end. And we were anticipating that and working through that. And amazingly, I can't tell you how many times I sat in meetings where, having spent that prior time doing anticipatory personality profiling, the meeting would go almost exactly as I, or as we, had anticipated. Again, based on how that leader, that administrator was wired. Studying history. Studying the history of ideas and ideologies and personality profiles, it takes time, but it can bear tremendous fruit. And I don't know, maybe it's because my PhD is in the history of theology, but I have deep respect for the role of history in discerning in the decision-making process. Here's some more. And this next grouping is from one of my monthly subscribers, Darren G. And he told me he would want someone who is advising him who could identify the goal or quality or virtue in question, then identify what an excess or deficiency in that area would look like, and then ask the Holy Spirit to help you discern the proper course within those boundaries and that context. Now, I like that pastiche. Again, Darren counsels that in seeking wisdom, we not only ask questions, but we ask ourselves teleological questions. What's the goal? What's the target we're seeking as we work through this mess? Or how and where can our character shine in the middle of this tussle? And then again, Darren says we should ask questions like, when is too much? What's too little? Excellent ways to discern answers, Darren. And still more, I like that he says we should ask the Holy Spirit for wisdom. I love it. Me, I regularly have prayed and pray for the Holy Spirit to inspire creativity when I'm going through some tough, tangled, long, drawn-out, messy situation. So yes, come, Spirit of God. Breathe your cleverness and wisdom. We desperately need you. That's good stuff. Thanks, Darren. Another significant quality for discernment, for recognition, courage. Thanks for the reminder, Dennis. You guys, this is huge, right? I mean, someone could discern or see the situation precisely for what it is, which is a judgment. But if knowing that you will not pull the trigger, make a decision based on that piercing knowledge, based on the dead-on target read of the situation, if one does not have courage, the insight, the knowledge will not matter. Oh my goodness. I saw this at the formerly Christian school where I taught. Oh, lack of courage. Dozens of good-hearted Christian faculty watched as the administration slowly whittled away the Christian identity, the Christian mission. Faculty were fittingly distressed. They lamented out loud to one another, and they complained demurely to the administration, but they would not take action. We're terrified to take a stand. A handful of we faculty would plead, come on, you guys, if we'll stand together, we can affect change. We can make a difference if we'll hold together. But nope. Even though dozens could see and were made sick to their stomachs by what was happening right under their feet, silence, capitulation. Take that capitulation in contrast to this biblical story. 900 years before Christ, Queen Jezebel the Cruel sent one of her messengers to the prophet Elijah, saying, I promise you that by this time tomorrow you will be as dead as the prophets of Baal you have slain. I am going to kill you. Elijah, he grew afraid. He strapped on his jogging shoes and fled for his life. He ran into the wilderness and hid inside a cave. And there, 1 Kings 19:12, while he was there, from out of a still small voice, also known as a gentle whisper, the Lord told Elijah, "Go and do what I have for you to do." And Elijah, know this: there are 7,000 in Israel who have not bowed their knees, who have not pressed their lips to the idol god Baal. You are, despite what you believe, you are not alone. Now, please, guys, get this. Those 7,000 faithful Israelites, they fully recognized discernment, how power-mongering that Queen Jezebel the Cruel was. They understood. They rightly judged her actions, what she propped up. And what did the 7,000 do? What'd they do? Refused to bow their knees. They recognized what was at hand, and they refused to press their lips in reference to Baal, the false portal of demons. Those 7,000 were in good, godly fashion practicing peaceful, nonviolent resistance. Oh Lord, do we need that kind of godly discernment and courage today here in a culture that is openly vomiting doublethink. Me? I'd like to be counted among the 7,000, thank you. Courage. An easy way to encourage me? Seriously, go to Patreon, Patreon, and make a $5, $10, or $20 monthly pledge, gold, frankincense, or myrrh. For my subscribers, I produce exclusive podcasts each month. I also send book copies. And I'd love to have you on the U team. And my subscribers, already on board? My heartfelt love today. Here's another quality that's good for discernment, for judgment making. I'm pretty sure I stole it from an Eastern Orthodox theologian, but it is one that I have come to heartily embrace. Find someone who has endured suffering, who knows what it means to hurt. It's not that I believe suffering is always good. Honestly, you guys, I'm not good at the whole spirituality of chronic suffering as a gift from God. I'm not wired like that. I know we can have a cross to bear and such, but I'm just not good at being wired like that. And I'm not saying seek counsel from a sadist. No, but I do especially seek the wisdom, the voice, the counsel of those who have suffered. Apostle Paul understood this. He said, quote, "Suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope." Romans 5, verses 3 through 4. Because people who have suffered, they're better at listening. People who've suffered, they're less glib about future paths. People who've suffered, they're slower to say empty things like, "Oh well, the church always does better when she's persecuted." Again, they're less glib. People who know suffering, they're more measured. They're willing to consider baby steps that are on the way to a decision. People who've suffered, they understand. They're patient to try to understand before rendering a judgment. And since we're thinking toward practicality, we should ask, how do you get these qualities? How do you learn these steps? Well, I'll offer just one significant way to get it. Hang around wise and discerning believers. There are no self-taught disciples. Self-taught disciples are almost always heretics. Or, just as worse, self-taught disciples are almost always odd. No, Jesus' entire orientation was rooted in community. So, seek out wise disciples. Seek out older siblings in Christ who themselves have been through the fire. Seek out people with curious natures. Seek out believers with measured tempers. Find ways to get coffee. Heck no, go buy them a cup of coffee and get seasoned Christ followers together and pick their brains. Oh, And goodness, when you're with them, listen. Don't do all the talking. Ask questions and then listen. Well, I hope that list is somehow helpful, because growing healthy discernment is not easy. I mean, on the one hand, it's easy to become judgmental, or today, it's real easy to altogether turn off your brain, just shut down all necessary judgment. But discrimination, healthy discrimination, is more critical than ever. I want to leave you with one last means of discernment. Whenever a leader, politician, professor, administrator, journalist, or pop culture figure, whenever a leader is speaking and they just seem to be using lots of fancy, ambiguous, vague words, right? I mean, you've been there, my listener. Someone just talking and talking for long segments of time without actually articulating anything particular. When that happens, your bullshitometer needs to be ringing loud and strong, because they are using vague buzzwords on purpose. They are verbally dancing for a reason. Their words lack veracity. And so, knowing all that, to that end, I'm going to give you a list of words and phrases that are commonly uttered today, but rarely defined. And as I noted in my episode number 166, Cult of the Now, Word Games, these words and phrases are intentionally vague. These phrases, these words are always spoken to impress, and therefore always spoken to grab your allegiance and to take power. Gobshite. Is your seatbelt fastened? Here goes. Without comment. Public servants. Right-sizing. Fundamentalist. Non-judgmental. Exploitation. Unity. Fascist. Experts say. Preferred future. White privilege. Reality-based community. Equity. Believe in yourself. Diversity. Ignorant. As polling makes clear. Undermine democracy. Gender fluid. Income inequality. Fighting oppression. Studies show. Bipartisan. Tolerance. Intersectionality. Misinformation. Violent rhetoric. Systemic racism. Lived experience. Heteronormativity. Social justice. And one that may be our denouement, our final lot as Christ followers, administrative detention. Lord have mercy. Christians, for such a time as this, we need discernment. Don't be cynical, but don't be naive. And more than ever, your BS-o-meter should be on and engaged. Please, don't be so open-minded that your brains fall out. Instead, everyone, please go and turn your beautiful God-given brains on.